Hey guys, I'm Jessica. I wanted to share with you guys about my bariatric experience, why I chose bariatric surgery, and kind of the steps that it took to get there. So I had a friend that had bariatric surgery about a year ago, and she just looked amazing, and she was so happy, and I honestly just wanted what she had. And my husband and I, Justin, had been experiencing some infertility, and IVF is so expensive, so I just decided to look at some other routes. And so I went with the Roux-en-Y laparoscopic gastric bypass. So the first step was to call the clinic where I wanted to look into having bariatric surgery, and that was at Duke, which is here in North Carolina where I live. So I called to make the first appointment, and it was a group appointment, so there were about 4 of us. We all went into the room and sat together. It was just around the table, kind of like a conference, and the PA came in and she told us a little bit about the different types of surgery, and then the nutritionist came in, told us what kind of things that we should be eating. So whenever I left that day, I had met with several people, including the surgeon, and I kind of had like a little bit of homework to do. I had to come up with a 7-day food journal. So for those next 7 days, I wanted to get things done as quickly as I could. I really dug in and did the 7 days. I went grocery shopping, I bought a bunch of healthy snacks, some healthy meals to make, and I sat down and I laid out the schedule. And granted, I didn't follow it exactly because, some days I would have kind of an elaborate meal and I'd get home from work and I didn't want to cook that much, so I'd just swap them around. So I made the snacks, I came up with the meal plan, I did that for those 7 days, and it went really well. And for those 7 days I was very motivated. But I will say that the next couple weeks before surgery ever happened, I kind of ate what I wanted. I wanted to kind of feel that that desire before I had surgery, because I knew after surgery you're on a 2-week liquid diet, and I wanted to make sure that I had all my favorite foods, all my favorite snacks and stuff, because I knew it would be a while before I could have those again. So for the next couple weeks I just kind of ate what I wanted, but I was in moderation. I was kind of mindful whenever I was eating to think about the amount of calories that I was taking in and things like that. So that day that I was there for that group appointment, you could just do the group and then you could go home, or based on what your insurance said, and they actually went ahead, they filed it with your insurance, not filed it, but just kind of got like the precursors as to what you had to do before surgery. And they gave it all to us, printed out. A woman came in and talked to us about the finances, about what our insurance would cover and what they wouldn't cover. And that day I met with the person about insurance. I also had my psych eval. I also rode over to the outpatient clinic at the hospital and got chest x-rays and some lab work done. And then I of course did the 7-day food journal. So the only thing that was left after those things was to get the EDG or EGD, I can't remember, the upper endoscopy, which is where they put the camera down your throat and they look around inside of your stomach just to check for abnormalities, any type of cell growth, anything like that. So basically I went in that morning. I went to Davis Surgical Center, which was also in Durham where Duke is, and I had to have someone drive me. I went in that morning. I couldn't eat after midnight the night before. I did all the pre-op stuff. They put me to sleep. I was actually under for only 3 minutes. They put the camera in, everything checked out. They said I might have had just a little bit of like a hernia, which was where like your stomach is starting to come up through your esophagus. But they said sometimes it shows, sometimes it is just kind of like a fluke and it's not really there. After surgery they actually didn't say anything about it, so I don't know if it was there or not, to be honest. So I was only asleep for 3 minutes, and then they took me into recovery, and my mother-in-law took me that day, and she come in, and I had to stay until my blood pressure was regulated and I was awake and I was alert, and then I was allowed to go home. And I was so hungry, but the only thing, because I couldn't have breakfast, and I didn't go in until like 11 o'clock, so I was pretty hungry whenever we got done. And so on the way home I stopped and I got something to eat, and everything was so dry. I would eat a bite and I'd have to drink. I'd eat a bite and I'd have to drink because I couldn't get it down. It just kind of, it was getting stopped. But that was the only problem with that. The being put to sleep was fine. I wasn't in any pain. They didn't prescribe me any pain medication or anything like that. So that, it was pretty simple other than the dryness. It just took a little bit. And I actually chewed some gum and that helped a lot to kind of moisten things back up with the extra saliva. So that was the last step. So after I did that, they sent my all of my stuff, the surgical date and all that stuff in through insurance to wait for final approval. And then I got a letter in the mail saying that I had been approved. Actually before that I got a call to schedule my actual surgery date, which was June 19th, which was like the best day of my life. It's like a new birthday. That's kind of how you start to look at it. It's like a new birthday. So I got the letter in the mail saying that I was approved for surgery, and I had to go back to Duke one time 2 weeks prior. They said anywhere from a week to a month prior to surgery. So mine was 2 weeks prior. I went back in. I was with a different group of people this time. These were people that had their surgery dates that had been approved through insurance and all that stuff. The first thing that we did whenever we got there is they gave us another piece of information from our insurance, and it was our estimated total cost. Well, I had two insurances, so how that works is they submit it to my first insurance and they pay what they're willing to pay, and then whenever they don't pay, they then submit it to my secondary insurance. So at that point they didn't know what insurance would cover. They didn't know what my secondary insurance would pay that my first insurance didn't. So I didn't get any paperwork that day, so I don't really know what it looked like, but I know that what it was everybody got insurance information, and it was their estimated total out-of-pocket cost. I know that the surgery cost like $40,000. My out-of-pocket maximum through my insurance was $4,350, and I got that on that first appointment. And I actually haven't received the bill for my surgery yet, so I don't know how much of that my secondary insurance covered. So I don't know if it will benefit me at all to have a second insurance, or if it would just be there for some cushion. So we went to that appointment. We met with the nutritionist again. So we did the 7-day food journal. She gave us our, we kind of went over that just a little bit. She gave us our expected calorie intake after surgery, our expected protein intake after surgery, and that was about it. We talked a little bit about your diet before surgery. You have to do a liver shrinking diet. I know that some facilities require you to do a 2-week pre-op liquid diet, which to me sounds like torture. And I'll tell you why. I only had to do 1 day liquids, and that day I could have as much sugar as I wanted. I could have any type of liquid that I wanted, Jello, anything like that, as long as it was clear. So that day I actually lived on, that morning I went to Sonic and got a slushie for lunch, and then I went to Pelican Snowballs that afternoon and got a avalanche snow cone for dinner, and it was enough to hold me over, and I just kind of sipped on drinks in between. But then after surgery we had to do a 2-week post-op liquid diet, and that's why I'll tell you that I couldn't imagine having to do 2 weeks prior of liquids, because the 2 weeks after, it was hard. Everybody around you would be eating things and you weren't allowed to eat them. You know, like you'd have your favorite snacks in the house, and I tried to avoid that, having anything that I really wanted in the house. I tried to kind of rid of that beforehand, and not buy anything new. But popsicles were a lifesaver because they had some crunch. We did go to Pelicans a couple times afterwards, and I actually had them get me Pelicans while I was in the hospital. And Pelicans offers a couple sugar-free options. Granted, they weren't as good as the regular, of course. But yeah, so all of that happened beforehand, and it went by fairly quickly. I didn't have, you know, any type of hiccups in the road. I didn't have any type of delay or stall. I know sometimes people are required to do a 6-month like pre-op diet through their insurance. And my friend Heather, who had the surgery before me, she did have to have 6 months of prior effort to lose the weight, and I didn't. And I'm not sure why. We have the same insurance, but I don't know if it was because I have PCOS and I have hyperlipidemia, which is high cholesterol not onset by food. I'd been diagnosed with all these things prior, and whenever I submitted my paperwork to the weight loss clinic, I made sure to include all that stuff. So I don't know if whenever they submitted my my approval through insurance, if that's why I didn't have to have all those things. I don't know what the difference is. I don't know the difference between other insurances and things like that. So that was all that I had to do prior. So then, you know, it kind of got down to the wire. I had my surgery date, I had all my stuff submitted, I had completed all of my prerequisites.